Exactly, exactly. And I'm excited, man. It's a busy day. It's a busy time to be talking about sports in general because that's going to be a lot of what we're going through today. We got some other things as well, but we're going to start out with the college football playoff round one just concluded. My phone is ringing right now. People need to stop calling me, but hold on a second. People calling me crazy right now. I'm important right now. But college football playoff round one. We gonna get into it. I was lucky enough to be at one of the games this week in the Texas A&M Miami game, but instead of talking just about it, we gonna show you as well. And let me just pull up the bracket real quick. And so we got the round one in the building, man. We start off with Alabama, Oregon, Oklahoma, Alabama, and Oklahoma. Oklahoma lost the game. Alabama came back. 34-24, beat them down. JMU got blown out by Oregon. Obviously, Tulane got blown out by Ole Miss. And Miami and Texas A&M had I don't even know how to explain that game. A low-scoring affair, per se. But we'll start off with the first game, Alabama, Oklahoma. I had Alabama winning that game. I just trust Bama because they've been there, done that. Oklahoma's 0-4, 0-5 now in the college football playoff. In general, I didn't like the quarterback. I wasn't really a big fan of the whole year. He was all right. Like, he played good, Mateer, but I just go based off experience for the most part. And Oklahoma just ain't got that experience as a team. And they losing at home like that and the way that they did when they were up 17-0. That's tough, man. They're going to need a lot of water to swallow that pill.
No, it was brutal. I mean, going into that game, Oklahoma had the home field advantage, which of course, that's always important. But going off of what you said, and there is actually a lot more to this game in terms of a narrative than just Alabama being Alabama and being the normal powerhouse that they were. This is a very important year for Alabama as head coach Kalen DeBoer. I hope I'm not butchering that. He had a lot to prove going into this playoff, as this wasn't your typical Alabama football year we've been used to for the past 20 years or so with Nick Saban under the helm. He's now gone. He came in from Washington, and they started out the year really rocky. I mean, DeAndre, if you remember, Alabama lost brutally to Florida State, who is now slipping into a bowl game they don't deserve to be in. More on that later. But Alabama going into this game, they've had such an up and down year, and their quarterback, Ty Simpson, I think he is a solid QB. I think he's a little overrated personally. But at the same time, he went into Norman and got the job done against a previous Heisman contender, John Mateer. That Oklahoma team just fell apart at the seams. Alabama going into this game is not one I really saw winning it. I actually thought Oklahoma had it because they had the advantage at home originally. But then the game happened and Alabama just roll tide. They just looked unstoppable. They looked really good. I don't know if that success is going to continue, though, into this next matchup we have here. And their next matchup being Indiana, who is the most hot team in college football right now, beating the other biggest powerhouse in football, Ohio State. I don't see Alabama moving forward.
Really? I think Alabama has a great chance to move forward. I mean, I like Ty Simpson, man, because Ty Simpson been in the program all for 4 or 5 years. John Mateer, that's his first year at Oklahoma, and there's a lot of players that transfer is a big thing nowadays and whatnot. I try to look deeper rather than just like the game, but I think both quarterbacks in the Oklahoma Alabama game, they're obviously high sought after college quarterbacks, but in regards to like going NFL, maybe not. But good college quarterbacks, I think stability goes a long way. And I think, if maybe Simpson were to transfer, that was his first year in Alabama, maybe he wouldn't have been able to rally the troops per se as, John Mateer wasn't able to because he didn't have the familiarity behind him and whatnot. But I mean, Alabama, they ain't got Saban, but they still Bama, and they proved that. I think they got a great chance against Indiana. I think Indiana's good, but Indiana ain't played no SEC team, man. That's all I'm gonna say. They ain't played no SEC team, and it's gonna get real when they play Bama. I think. I mean, what's the spread on that game? If you could find a spread for me, but I just think that it's gonna be a closer game than people think. The game, Alabama. This is time. This is time for them to kind of show that they can be still Bama without Saban. They proved that against Oklahoma, and they got a solid team. Even with Ryan Williams being wide receiver 4, like I don't even think he caught a pass in that game. So, one of your quote unquote best players not even being a real participant in the game, going against Indiana, who they're quality. They beat Ohio State. Of course, they're a really, really good team, and I'm rooting for Indiana. And I'm SEC all the way, but I'm rooting for Indiana. But I just think 4 weeks, 4 weeks off. That's real tough because remember last year, all the top 4 seeds lost last year in the second round.
Yeah, they did. To answer your question from earlier, the line for this game is actually -6.5/7. I guess it depends on the book to Indiana, and the money line is -250 Indiana,
I'm
Alabama.
taking that. I'm taking that spread.
I think this will be a close game. I think, although to be fair, any game from here on out is going to be really close. The only one that might be a blowout will be that Miami game, Miami, Georgia. I think, right? Is that who they're playing?
No,
No,
they play.
Miami,
They play. Yeah,
pardon my
Ohio
French.
State.
Yeah, that one I think would be a blowout. But back to this, I think going into this matchup, Fernando Mendoza, he won the Heisman. However, I've been hearing a lot of chatter in my ear saying he's a system quarterback, and that is a word I've used way too much in the past 2 weeks. But I really don't think he is, and I think that while Alabama does, and listen, to your point, I think it's going to be a great game. I actually think this is probably going to be the best game out of this lineup of quarterfinals we have. I don't believe that Alabama is going to be Indiana because, listen, Indiana going into this year, and I saw a really cool stat on this. Everyone thought they had a cakewalk schedule. Hell, they even dodged some teams. They actually took Louisville out of their non-conference schedule and put in Kennesaw State, but I'm going to get to that in a minute, why that actually is kind of important. Indiana going into the year, everyone said had a cakewalk schedule, but they weren't going to beat Ohio State. They weren't going to win against the games that mattered, but they're undefeated still. And they played 3 teams that have over 10 wins this year, those ironically being Kennesaw State, Old Dominion, and Ohio State. And let me
Wait. They were ranked?
The other 2 were not, but they ended up winning 10 games, and they went through the gauntlet in the Big Ten, including, and I guess this might go against my argument depending on how you look at it, a near loss to Penn State, a post James Franklin Penn State, where Mendoza threw a touchdown pass, I believe, in the last 2 minutes of the game. It might have even been the last play.
It was the last play.
Yeah, and that's Heisman activities right there. I don't see that. And listen, that Alabama defense is always amazing. It's always a top. I mean, you look at the draft and how many players defensively and offensively too come from Alabama each year. It's a astronomical statistic. I just don't see Alabama getting over this hump. I predict that Indiana wins this one by a slim margin. It could even be by field goal range.
I mean, Alabama's like that old dog, old Yeller, man. You can always call on him, and it's gonna come back to you. And I just think old Yeller gonna come back, but he's on he's facing a young pup ready to take the throne. And with the system quarterback thing, just saying, I don't know who's saying that to you, but Mendoza, if they didn't realize he's his first year in Indiana. He had a different system in Cal. I don't think they brought that same system over. So I don't know who's saying that, but they need to go to the doctor, get their vitals checked. But I'm with you, man. This might be the best game. I'm excited to watch this one. Where's this one at? This one's in
I think it's in Indiana, but let me. I
no,
don't
it
know.
ain't.
It's neutral site. It's neutral site because these are actual bowl games.
Yeah.
Let
I think
me
that one is it's either Atlanta or it is in Dallas.
Rose Bowl.
Oh,
It's in LA.
it's in
Well,
LA.
no, it's in not
Pasadena.
LA, but it's in the LA area. It's
Yeah, Pasadena. I got to go to the Rose Bowl this year. I went UCLA, Nebraska. Great environment. Both terrible poverty teams, but besides them, yeah, I think Indiana. I'll give them to win this too. You know, all the higher seeds lost last year, but I just Mendoza won the Heisman. I'm not gonna say he's gonna have like the refs or like the NCAA on his side per se because they want him to like be that dude. I don't remember, but you know, because we didn't have the Heisman Trophy winner in the playoffs last year, and I just know with the Heisman winner, you know, they make a lot of money involved nowadays. So I think that Indiana's gonna win the game. I'll give a prediction of 20, 20 to 17. 2017, I think it's a lower scoring affair. And, you know, Mendoza going to come out in the clutch and give a great speech at the end of the game.
If we're putting number predictions on this, I'm going to go 24-21 Indiana. Like I said, I think it's field goal range for this team. But let's talk about another matchup here in this bracket. One that's kind of confusing to me in a lot of ways, and you were at this game. Miami, Texas A&M. DeAndre, can you break down what the hell happened in Aggie Land?
A travesty, man, a travesty. Well, I don't even know what to explain. All right, well, hold on. So to be precise, look, it was dope. I got to go to the game this past weekend. It was lit in College Station. Never been, well, I haven't been in 10 years. I actually played there back in the day. And, you know, getting there was cool. It was an early game, 11 a.m. I thought that was ridiculous. I was wiping sweat out my eyes getting there, or the sleep out my eyes. Drove all the way from Austin, Texas that morning to get there, about an hour and a half drive. And, you know, I was walking through the campus. People were real nice. You know, I talked to all the peoples, interviewed the peoples before the game and after the game. And before the game, I ran into some dude. And he was like, look, whatever happens, happens. And I'm like, what do you mean whatever happens, happens? He's like, do you not trust your team? And he's like, no, I don't. I was like, why not? And he's like, because we always make it far and then we crumble at the end. I mean, look what happened to Texas. I'm not going to get my hopes up. I'm just happy to be here. A lot of people kept saying they were just happy to be here. And I was like, really? Because they were 4.5 or 5.5 point favorites in the game. And I'm thinking like, is there something I don't know? Because I know like people come to Mizzou where I went to school. Oh, I have no faith and confidence us when it comes to the big games. I know we probably I know what time it is when it comes to the big games. And I'm not 100% familiar on A&M's history, but they haven't won national championships since the World War II. 1939. So that's older than everybody at the game. And so with that, I'm like, look, maybe y'all got a point. Miami does have a better pedigree. Not that means everything, but you know, Michael Irvin was there. Andre Johnson was there. They had everybody like who was anybody on their sidelines. And A&M, Johnny Manziel couldn't even show up because he was still hungover from the fight in Miami. So things were, you know, in those aspects, in those big retrospects of things, looking back on the game, man, the game was 0-0 by halftime. Kickers was missing field goals left and right. One even bounced off the upright. People there were losing hope. They gained hope near the end of the game. And Texas A&M, or Miami scored. Tony scored 10-3. And Miami honestly should have blew them out because if they would have converted if they would have made their field goals, let alone got touchdowns out of them, they would have had 20, 30 points. Texas A&M couldn't really move the ball. The quarterback was just not there. It was just not there. And you know, the end of the game comes. I got the phone. I posted the video already on my TikTok and Instagram if y'all ain't seen it. The quarterback throwing it. Terrible loft up pass, interception. Game over.
And that play kind of it seeps into a bigger problem with this game. And I think that the overthinking that Marcel Reed and here's the thing. This could be a Marcel Reed thing or a Mike Elko thing because at the end of the day, Marcel Reed threw the pick, and I leave this more on the quarterback to decide what to do. But when all year the at the time 11-1 A&M Aggies, they were final ranked in the AP poll number 7, and they looked just dominant all year. They looked like they belonged in at least the quarterfinals, right? Marcel Reed was a dual threat QB. His thing was is he could scramble, he could get out of the pocket, and he could score. On that last drive against Miami where he threw that pick, if you saw the replay, there was a wide open, and I can't show it, but there was a wide open section of field to the left of him. He could have easily just scrambled in and tied the game.
Yeah, there was a wide open field. I think he got happy feet because I don't think they had any timeouts left. And I mean, look, it didn't matter if they had any timeouts left. They had enough time. I think there was 20, 30 seconds left in the game. And there was third down when he threw that pick because first down, he threw it away. Second down, the dude caught it but dropped it because he got laid out. And that was the third down play. And, I mean, fourth down, all the marbles, that's it. But there was 4 people around him too. Like, bro, even if you would have thrown it not behind him, either he would have got knocked out or it would have been a pick or out of the end zone. Like, I just couldn't. I'm like, bro, like, what do you? And it was a soft throw too. It was an easy pick. It wasn't even had no zip on it, no nothing. And Marcel Reed, he was the leading rusher on the team, which is crazy. They didn't run the ball. Everyone was like, run the ball, run the ball. They weren't running the ball at all for whatever reason. It's not like they had to come back until the very end. So I don't understand what was going on with the play calling. Colin Klein is the offensive coordinator, and I believe that was his last game offensive coordinating there, and he's going to go to Kansas State where he played at. I believe. I could be wrong about the Kansas State part, but I'm pretty sure because Kansas State, I think, fired their head coach. I think. I just know it's his last game being the offensive coordinator. So I don't know. He was open, but and he could have definitely outran those dudes because he got that speed, but I think he thought, if I get tackled and we can't get the ball back to the line for the next play, sometimes you can't overthink like that, man. You just got to react. And he, as a dual threat quarterback like he is, he was thinking the whole time, and cost him the whole entire playoffs. And I had them winning this game. I ain't gonna lie, I had them winning this game.
And as a Carson Beck, like I say, hater, I'm not a Carson Beck fan. I have a lot of. When I decide who I like as football players, I really take a lot into consideration, even off the field, and that's kind of where my problem lies with Carson Beck, as I do not like the politics. I don't like the antics he brings to a team. But he didn't win them this game. Texas A&M won them that game. They shot themselves in the foot. Texas A&M were, I wouldn't call it heavy favorites, but they were favorites, and I didn't see Miami. I don't think Miami even really belonged in the playoff. I think this was more so a testament to Texas A&M continuing Texas A&M activities and choking the hell out of this team when every year their expectations are the same as Alabama's. I mean, let's not even bring up the Jimbo Fisher era. I mean, that was a joke. I mean, it's like comes to a certain point. You could have as an expensive as a roster as you get with this team. You bring in Mike Elko, who I did like at Duke, and if you can't finish it, it's like, and listen, Marcel Reed is not the full problem. If you look at the game, there's many things I could break down. I'm not going to, but this team, just something is going on in the front office, and they really need to reevaluate things going into next year. Looking into a different matchup, though, because this one was just a travesty. And Miami going on to Ohio State, quickly we'll talk about that. I don't think Miami even comes close to being this team. I think Miami gets the rock beaten out of them. Just completely smoked, just K'd by Ohio State.
I wonder what the spread is for that game. Because funny thing is, though, with the Miami fans were talking crazy. Like, they were talking crazy, and they're making it seem like this is their year. Now, I don't think it's their year, obviously. And I think Ohio State's going to take care of business. But I still think the 4-week layoff, 3-4 week layoff is going to make the game closer than what it seems. And if this spread is 13-14, I definitely think it's a 10-point game or less.
The early spread for this game is Ohio State minus 9.5.
Okay, then yeah, right on the money with me then. So
I'm taking that to cover. I don't see Miami. I think, listen, the last game with A&M, their running back got the touchdown. I mean, Miami has some great players on it. They do. I mean, they have a projected top 5 lottery pick in Ruben Jr., or Ruben, however you say his last name. But it's not enough. I think Ryan Day steamrolls the Hurricanes.
okay, we'll see, coach. We'll see, coach. Well, good luck to Miami, man. We're gonna send our prayers out for y'all because Ohio State's chomping at the bit like a dog with the bone in front of it. So we will move on to the next two games real quick. The next two games was JMU Oregon, which was a blowout as I and many others predicted. And we had Tulane and Ole Miss, which was a blowout, as I and many others predicted. Now, look, these two games, I'm going to put these two games together because I'm not going to lie. I really wasn't watching these games too closely. I knew everyone knew what time it was going to be. People are going to have had many arguments of people saying, oh, there should be two. At first, I was like, oh, yeah, there should be two. I don't want to call them mid-majors. What would you call them? Like G5 teams. What does the G stand for?
Of 5. G.
Oh, I didn't know that. Group of 5 teams in there. And I'm like, no, they shouldn't be in there. Maybe one, but really they both shouldn't be because these are not the best 12 teams. And I don't like how the rules say, oh, we have to include at least one. And the only reason there's 2 is because the ACC didn't have another at-large. Someone's like, oh, you blame the ACC. I'm like, no. Just put another SEC or Big Ten team, or put Notre Dame, put Texas, or put Vanderbilt on there. I wish Vanderbilt would have got in because I think,
too.
yeah,
I also wish Vanderbilt was in the playoff. They should have been.
They should have been. And it's like, I understand why Texas isn't, and I understand why Notre Dame isn't. But I think having both of these two teams in was just a waste. Like, it was a waste of 2 games. These games were not close at all. These games aren't really worth talking about because there's nothing to go over with the games because everyone knew exactly what the outcome was going to be. And if you bet the under on the spread or the spread for Tulane, actually, James Madison actually covered, shockingly.
I was going to say, I don't agree with you on that these 2 games are a waste. I think Tulane should have gotten in. I think James Madison deserved to be in the playoff.
I don't think so.
I had the privilege to be on the field working the JMU Louisville game this year, which is ironically the only team they lost to. And it was still a great game. I actually predicted an upset there.
What was Louisville's record this year?
I don't want to talk. We'll get to that later. But JMU, they ran a very weird quarterback system where their backup was Matt Skolka. Their starter, I don't remember his name, but they had a passing rushing duo that they would sub in and out, and I really liked it. I think that they had a very creative scheme, and their head coach just left, and now Billy Napier is a fucking Duke, which is crazy great hire. I love that for James Madison. But the JMU Dukes, I think, absolutely deserve to be in the playoffs. Tulane, on the other hand, I did like Jake Retzlaff going into this year. I thought he was very good at BYU, and I thought he was a smash transfer for Tulane. But I don't think they belonged in the playoff. I think Vanderbilt should have been the 11 seed getting in and should have been playing Ole Miss.
Yeah, I mean, I think so too with the Vanderbilt thing, but I'd say they both look, one is fine, I suppose, but these aren't the best 12 teams, you know? They're just not. And that's my whole point of like them not the games kind of being I won't say pointless. That's too harsh of a word. I guess say not exciting to prep for. You know, I was going to pick 1 of 4 of these games to go to and those were automatically off my list because I already knew what time it was going to be. You know, and Oklahoma's game was on a Friday, which made it difficult logistics wise to get to. So, but anyways, it was just, I think next year, 1 or 2 things need to happen is if you're going to pick the 11 best teams, pick the 11 best teams. Okay. Maybe if you get throw a G5 team in there, sure, whatever, unless it's like a Boise State that they can usually, if they have a good team there, compete, or maybe like I don't even know. Boise State, the only one to really come to mind. That's a G5. That's a really kind of could be considered a power school at this point.
Well, there's a weird bridge right now between the traditional power, well, now the Power Four with the Big 12, ACC, SEC, and Big 10, and the ACC starting to become a little debatable. But the Pac 12 and Mountain West are that weird bridge between the Group of Five and the Power Five. And, when you just mentioned it, a school like Boise, a school like historically Washington State or Oregon State, even SDSU, depending maybe on the year. Like, schools like that would be the random bridge if they were good enough to take that 11 or 12 spot. But I think in general, what needs to happen moving forward, DeAndre, is I think that the committee might need to be reevaluated. I just don't
Yeah.
think whoever is picking the spots in the playoffs, I just don't think it's justified. I think seeing two group of fives in the playoff this year had an important element to it outside of the matchups. I think it proved that there needs to be a closer bridge between group of five and power five that currently exists. But at the same time, you kind of said it, they were two easy outcomes. They weren't upsets, especially not the Ole Miss game. I mean, even though Lane Kiffin left, and we will be talking about that at some point on the show. Um, even though he left, Ole Miss is still a loaded team, and Trinidad Chambliss is a phenomenal quarterback. I did not see a Tulane upset in the slightest, and I really didn't see it with Oregon either.
No, like they weren't winning if they that just wasn't happening. I mean, hell would have had to break loose. Even the backup quarterbacks could have got the job done. And I think if you're gonna bring the G5s in the college football playoff, kind of do it where you do March Madness, where instead of 64 teams, we have 68, and maybe have the two G5 team play maybe a Vanderbilt or Texas to get that 12th spot, and then have another 11 for the 11 seed, a G5 team that could be a Tulane play a Notre Dame to get that 11th spot. I think that's a quality, a pre-one, because they're giving them 3 weeks anyways as a break, except if you made the conference championship. You had the conference championship the last week of December, then you had the 13th. So some teams had 3 weeks off, some teams had 2 weeks off, depending on who you're talking to. So I think that's a way to go. Obviously, expanding the playoffs, I think it should be 14 to 16 teams. No more than 16. That's getting too many. But yeah, man, there's got to be something, because I mean, unless people want to see these games, which yes, I think teams deserve a chance. If you went undefeated, like, let's see what they can do. But it's not college basketball. This is not. This is way different. So people saying, well, college basketball, you have March Madness darlings and sweethearts and upsets all the time. That's completely different, because basketball as a sport, you can have a team just make threes all games and win the game randomly. Football, that ain't happening, coach. Like,
Really. And I mean, I think extending to a 16-team playoff would actually do wonders. I actually thought originally it should be 16 teams, because the more teams you're able to bring into the pool here, and you say yourself, it's not March Madness. Obviously, don't go up to 32 or 20. It's not basketball. Football is a 51-man roster. There's a lot more elements that go into that game, and there's a lot more randomness. I think that could happen with with the factors being every position. If we were able to expand that to 16 teams, more teams like a Notre Dame or a Vanderbilt would get a chance to prove themselves, and maybe even another team that wouldn't even have been considered before, right?
yeah, facts.
I think whether that changes or not is definitely something we'll see in the future. I kind of doubt it, because even getting the CFP from 4 to 12 was already, if you remember, a very controversial process that just took a long
10 years, man. 10 years. I wish we had this when I was playing, or else I would have made the college football playoff. So, but that did not happen. But it's time to give these predictions for the rest of these games. We'll start with the Orange Bowl for Oregon, Texas. I'll actually be at this game, so I'm going to be excited.
It's awesome.
This game is in Miami. Neither team is really that close. They're neither that close. I'm going to give it to Oregon, just because I think Texas Tech had a long enough layoff to where I think they will be extra rusty, kind of like last year. And Oregon got blasted by Ohio State last year. So I think this is their Disney Plus redemption story. You know, ESPN loves stories, Disney loves stories. Oregon's a great story to bring back and like, oh, they got blown out. They're going to talk about this all the way. They got blown out last year, and now they're back. And I think they'll get the job done based on that. I'm going to have a high scoring affair. I think it's going to be Oregon 30, Texas Tech 17.
I disagree. I think Texas Tech, there's a lot of controversy surrounding the Red Raiders this year. They have one of the most, if not the most expensive roster in college football, or at least the Big 12. They are just dominant as hell this year. Their linebacker was a Heisman candidate. And I think that, especially with this being a neutral site game and Texas Tech being just a little closer than Oregon, I mean, you have your point. Texas Tech has had more time off, but this is a team that has looked legit this year, and they haven't been slacking. There hasn't been a whole lot of antics here off the field. This isn't a traditional powerhouse either. They are hungry as hell to do well. And I think that Texas Tech, I don't think they destroy Oregon, but I think they win. I think Texas Tech beats Oregon. You see, this is a tough score right here. I don't think this is going to be a very field goal heavy game, but I think that Texas Tech wins this one 31-21.
You know what Texas Tech's best win is of the year?
BYU.
BYU. I mean, look, they also haven't quote unquote played anybody, and they have the time off. And Texas Tech, they might have had a Heisman candidate top 10 as the linebacker, but they haven't proven anything to the masses either in regards to who they've beaten. So I think they have an easy Big 12 conference. That's about it, Coach.
But I think that's why, actually, I think that's the reason why they're going to do so well, is because they have this narrative that they haven't put anyone, which, here's the thing about the Big 12. It's not, and listen, as someone who has worked for the ACC this year and who has been around that environment so much, the ACC is a weak-ass conference. The Big 12 is stronger than that. It's number 3 on the Power 4 chain, but Texas Tech had some interesting competition this year. I mean, you had teams that were definitely upset-worthy teams that were in this conference. I mean, BYU, I think, had an argument to be in the playoff for most of the year, right? They were very good.
Texas Tech, they beat BYU. West Virginia, terrible. UCF, mid. They beat BYU twice, but whatever. Kansas State, bad year for them. Oklahoma State, god awful. Arizona, they lost to Arizona State. Kansas, terrible. Houston, I'll give them. Houston's respectable. Utah, respectable. They're good. I'll give Utah as a good team. Oregon State, terrible. Kent State, terrible. Arkansas Pine Bluff, terrible. I don't think they lost to Arizona State, who's unranked, and then they beat a good Houston team. They beat a good Utah team. But I
think this goes along with the narrative that this team is hungry. They have a lot more to prove in this season, and given their seed, I can see it can be. I think it genuinely is a toss. Like, I mean, whoever, this is gonna be a close game, and
it's gonna be close.
I mean, the spread on this one, right? Like,
and I think, unfortunately for them too, Mahomes not going to be there because he just had a surgery, so he's not going to be there to cheer them on. So he's not going to be able to give them that magic.
The Oregon Ducks are favored by 1.5 points, -1.5 Oregon. That's
what I'm talking about.
I guess we'll see. We'll see.
We'll see.
It's this one.
Big 10. Okay, well, I got the Big 10. I got the Big 10 taking it as well. You mean Big 12, or you said Big 12. So, and then we'll go down to we already talked about the Rose Bowl and the Sugar Bowl, Ole Miss and Georgia. That is in New Orleans, where that craziness happened last year. I think that Georgia wins this pretty easily. I ain't gonna say easy, but I think they win this closely. because they had the time off. It's not going to be a blowout. Ole Miss doesn't have their coach, of course. They blew out a Tulane. They got that false hope. Georgia's hungry because they ain't trying to get back. Kirby, he's trying to get back. And I think Georgia takes this. I'll say this one might be 34-20.
So here's my take on this game. Listen, Kirby Smart is one of the geniuses in the landscape of college football, one of the smartest coaches, one of the best coaches. And Georgia, just has been one of the most dominant teams in the last few years. But how I really feel about this matchup is, and this is what I've been hearing online, I've been seeing a lot of rumors. There is a lot of conversation with these coaches being talked about of who doesn't belong in the playoff this year. Who are the biggest frauds? And whether they can control it or not, given their circumstance with Lane Kiffin leaving, it is the Ole Miss running Rebels, right? They are just not supposed to be here given their current circumstances. Their roster is still intact. They are still very hungry, and there is a great narrative with that team. Their coach left them, and the coach, Lane Kiffin we'll talk about another time, very drama-riven. A lot of controversy comes around him. They have someone else within the program step up, and now he's leading the team. I think Ole Miss will put up a fight at most, but I see Georgia just completely blowing the brakes off them. The last time they played, it was close. I will give Ole Miss that, but that was under Lane Kiffin. Controversy aside, he is a great coach. And I think that Georgia wins. I think they steamroll the Rebels. You could say hotty toddy all you want, but I think that Georgia wins this game, especially, I love that this is in New Orleans too. It just really, there's going to be a ton of fans at this game because NOLA is really not horribly far from, it's a little far from Athens, but it's not horribly far from Oxford. And I think that it's going to be an electric environment, arguably the best one out of this whole slate. And there's a great story here, but I think Georgia wins this one 24-7.
Oh, dang. You ain't giving them a shot. I'm only one. Look, I'm with you there, coach. They'd be lucky to get 2 touchdowns. That's all I'm gonna say. And Georgia, they're a team that's experienced. Then they can use the rest to their advantage rather than it being used against them. But yeah, Gunnar Stockton. What they call him? I went to the Georgia Tech game. They were calling him Stunner Glockton, and he gonna stunt all over them. So yeah, seeing Georgia play as well, and it was a close game against Georgia Tech too. But that's a rivalry game, so a little different. But yeah, I think, like you said, they're gonna take care of business, and we will see them in the semifinals.
I do have one question before before we move on to the next topic here, and it's based off of this Georgia team. You mentioned Gunnar Stockton. He's been great all year, and he was kind of like Ty Simpson. He kind of came up through Georgia, to my knowledge. He sat behind Carson Beck, and he waited for his turn, and he turned out to be great. But do you think, given the current circumstances, and you can have your own opinions on the individual, do you think Gunnar Stockton is an upgrade over Carson Beck?
Yes, because people didn't like Beck either, too. So like the fans really weren't high on him. I think he just fits Georgia's narrative better. I don't know where Carson Beck is from, but Gunnar Stockton is from Georgia. He is a hometown kid. I'm going to see where Carson Beck's from. I don't think he's from Georgia. Oh, he's from Florida, too. So I just think, being from Georgia, being the team, that matters. That little stuff matters. And I just think Carson Beck lost his starting job, too. And Gunnar Stockton could lose his job too next year, but look, Carson Beck also, I just think Gunnar Stockton. I ain't gonna get personal with Beck. I ain't gonna get into his personal business, but I just think he's more Georgia, man. He just fits that team. It's kind of like how, maybe Daniel Jones fits Indiana better than he fits New York. He ain't really a New York type of dude, and that might have not worked in his favor. Same with Matt. I ain't gonna say same with there's certain quarterbacks that just Ben Roethlisberger. Ben Roethlisberger kind of fits the Pittsburgh mold. Same with Josh Allen in Buffalo. He kind of fits that mold to where maybe he wouldn't be producing it on a New York squad. Granted, it would take a really even they're good quarterbacks. They might not fit that vibe. So I just think Gunnar Stockton fits the Georgia vibe.